Welcome to another episode of HenRefurb. This one's been a really long time coming, so I am sorry for the delay, but I hope it has been worth the wait. It's quite a serious project. It's been an absolute nightmare, taken absolutely ages, the bane of my life for the last year or so, but it has finally made proper progress and I'm pleased to say it's complete. So this is part one. There will be a part two. But without further ado, let's get started restoring the chassis. So it's all a bit scruffy at the moment because it's covered in dust and stuff, but I'm not bothered about protecting the chassis at the moment because I'm about to make a huge mess of it, so I've just left it and then I'll do all the repair work and worry about cleaning it up afterwards. But this big hole here is a bit of an issue, which is basically I'm just going to cut out a strip there and weld a new piece in, and then possibly the same along the front, and then re-drill the holes that need re-drilling, and we'll go from there. So there's another piece here, and you can see this edge roughly where my finger is pointing. Beyond that edge is still original full thickness steel, where it just seems to rust in these weird focused shapes everywhere, and it means that it's going to be really easy to fix, which is great. I find it a little bit strange the way this rusts. I've never seen rust like it. All the things I've worked on before, if they're rusted this badly anywhere, well, the rest of it is chances good enough to go in the bin. But on this chassis it's rusted like that there, but it's like new there, so it's kind of strange. Okay, here's an update. So, the new piece is in on the top, all welded nicely. There's a few knobbly welds where I was trying to hold this in position at the same time as welding and missed a bit, but the rest of them have gone down really nicely. And I've slotted the bottom piece. So I've just got to do exactly the same here, make a piece for there, weld it all up, then I'll grind all of these welds back, smooth them over, and then turn the chassis over and make sure everything looks right on the other side as well. There we go, welding done, solid as a rock, no more holes. Just got to well, dress it all down now with the angle grinder and then put the mounting hole in the front, which the front sort of apron piece that goes here bolts in there, so I've got to drill that hole back in again. But that's good. Okay, it's update time. This is finished. Well, the top side is anyway. I've got to have a look underneath. But in order to do that, I need to flip the chassis over. But I am really happy with this. There's no more hole to stare me in the face every time I enter the workshop, which is good. So, along with this bit, there's a few other spots that need attention. Occasionally, there's a little rough patch, like here, where some rust has got trapped in under something that was bolted on top through that hole. So I'm probably just going to fill that with weld and grind it back level. There's a tiny patch there as well, and one or two others dotted around. And then there's these outriggers. So this is where the side steps go, and you know there's a hole there, and there and there. Except that piece of metal there is full thickness. All of that in between there and there is full thickness. In fact, the bottom edge of that hole is also pretty well thick. Anyway, I'm just going to take a slice from there to there and replace that whole piece with a new piece of steel and just weld along the top, down each side, tidy it up underneath, and then there's that fully dealt with. That will be like good as new. And then a more tricky one, unfortunately on this one, in the curve, there's this chunk here that's gone bad, so I will probably do the exact same thing. The same thing applies. It's really thick steel, you know, right up to the holes. What I'll do is slice a square out of that, I think, and make a little curved piece, weld that in, and then we've got a real complicated bit here. So it's kind of hard to see, but this is supposed to curve right the way round, and there's a chunk missing there, but there's also this bracket that goes over the top. You see this extra piece now, so I've got to try and replace this under here, weld it in without mucking up this bracket or making it look like the weld blends into the bracket. I don't want that. I want it to look as original as possible, so I've got to be very careful. Might be trim that straight there and only weld it from the underside, but we'll see how that goes. And then there's a few other bits. This leg is actually perfect, no work required on that one. Around this side there's just some scruffy last year's repairs that I'd started doing but never really got anywhere with, so basically I've just got to tart all of that up. Underneath it's really messy because of all the weld drip through, so I've got to clean a lot of that up. But I think that's it then. And what that means is, well, I can start working on the bodywork side of the chassis. I mean, there's a few here. There's a bit of welding that I did last year that just needs a bit of touching up. It's obviously been through the sandblaster since and then has been painted, but so I have to clean that off. But that's literally it. And then I'm done on the chassis repairs. Oh, actually no, I've completely lied. The battery box, completely broken, so I'm going to slice that bottom section out and weld a new piece in. And then that genuinely is it. First thing I'm going to look at is that outrigger. Welding is almost complete on the chassis. It's all welded up now, apart from the battery box, and I'm waiting for the right thickness steel to turn up so I can replace a big piece of that. But the outriggers are all done and the front section's all done. I will show you that shortly, but first I want to have a go at getting this pin out here. There are 4 of them, and someone suggested that if I heat this up and hit that, it will come out. So that's what I'm going to try. Well, that clearly didn't work. The last major job on the chassis is the battery box. As you can see, it's completely rusted through here. So I've ordered a piece of steel, it's turned up. I'm going to cut it for whatever reason. This side is a lot rustier than this side. Presumably this is the front, so this takes the impact of all of the nasties or whatever on the road. I'm going to cut this up the top, fold a piece of metal down along the bottom, and then I'm just going to cut this one right on the join here, because this is immaculate unrusted metal here. So I've replaced the whole bottom and most of this side and just do a seam weld about an inch below the bracket along there. And that gets rid of nearly all of the nasty rust. It gets very thin at this point, and obviously here where it's completely rusted through. So here we go. That's another one sorted. That should find holding a battery a lot easier now. I'm just going to put some primer on that to keep the rust at bay. This is the very last bit of chassis welding to be done. It's literally just tidying up some welds that I did sort of this time last year, but I did them outside and I did them with my other welder and it wasn't working properly. So proper welder, works perfectly. Just going to clean up some of the mess welds and smooth them off, and then that's literally it. No more holes anywhere. And then I can just, I don't know, cover it in body filler and sand it all down and then paint it, basically. I mean, that's going to take a lot longer than that, but that's the crux of it. Time has come to start doing bodywork on the chassis, finally. So I've got it laid out on the barn floor. It's all clean in here and tidy, and all the welding stuff's out the way now, so it's just time to, well, get some body filler on it, I guess. So, here's a little interesting update. I've just managed to get one of the shackle pins out of the chassis, that side. I'm going to do the same this side and show you how. I have this hydraulic hub puller. I made a little tool that inserts into the pin that can push all the way through and get rid of the pin. So I had to do a load of work on this. I borrowed this off my friend Ben. Hopefully, I've rebuilt it, changed the seals inside, so hopefully this should be working now. And this thing is incredibly powerful. I should be able to just wind this little screw here, and the hydraulic ram there should push that out. The one on that side went with a mighty bang as the joint between the pin and the chassis broke. The 90-year-old joint finally let go. So we'll see what this does. Hopefully it'll be easier now that the thing works. Whoa. So, presumably that big bang was the pin moving just a tiny little touch. It doesn't look like it's moved, but I expect it did. So in theory, if that is what happened, then when I wind this in this time, it should just start pushing it out of the hole. Whoa! Blimey. That's a lot more stuck than the one the other side was. It's definitely moving. I can see there's a gap now as the pin has driven its way in just a tad. So that is a violent bang when that goes. I really don't know how I'd have got them out, to be honest, without this. I think it's free now. I think this is just actually pushing it now, so it's just winding its way out completely silently, which is somewhat less scary. And so when you run out of travel on this screw, you have to wind it all the way back out, let the piston go back in, and then wind the main screw back in to take up the slack. There we go. One pin, and there's my special tool, so that just inserts in the end and it pushes the pin out the whole way, nice and smoothly. Now I've just got the rear two to do. Well, that brings us to the end of part one, I'm afraid. Next time I'm going to be pushing out more pins, chucking on loads more body filler, but most importantly, I'm going to paint the chassis. So that's going to be worth waiting for, I think. If you've got any questions or suggestions, pop them in the comments section below and I'll do my best to answer. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.